Okay, I've just finished doing the last of the recording for this video, and I'm going to try to... I do horribly screw up a lot. I believe that this is 5 volts 1 amp, but no, it's 5.1 volts 1 amp. So I'll put a note as well, but if you are going to be getting yourself a Raspberry Pi and you want to use it as a general PC, my suggestion, now this is a suggestion, this isn't a command, an order, or this is what I think you should do. If you're using this as a normal desktop, get yourself an external USB 3 powered hub. That's a bit of a mouthful, but don't go and buy your cheap Chinese ones, because you learnt the hard way where that's not a very good idea. Well, not really, but kind of cringed and got very lucky. But because I'm only deploying this next to a television as a media center, everything's going to be streamed off the network, so not an issue. Anyway, enjoy the video. So I'm sort of recording this at the point where I've already taken this out of the bag, but I received this today in the post. It's my new Raspberry Pi. There are a few places selling this, so it really depends on who you feel comfortable buying these things from. Anyway, I'm upgrading this now. I believe it's a Pi 3 that I currently... No, sorry, a Pi 2. It's a Raspberry Pi 2 that I currently have. Model B, and this is a Raspberry Pi 4 Model B that I've purchased, at least I hopefully have purchased. Now, I did buy a few other things. However, I didn't buy the memory stick, the SD card that you can buy with noobs on it. Instead, I just got myself this. I wanted to get a smaller one. Not a smaller one, there was a cheaper one for like $8, but out of stock where I was going to buy it from, so yeah. Anyway, because I haven't, well, undone this part, I thought I'd do it on camera and just go through and show. I know this is more like show and tell than an unboxing. Ooh. So you can pretty much guess where I got this from. I'll have to check my order. So the original case that this setup came with was different. I picked this one specifically because I kind of like it. Other than that, there's no other reason. Ooh, comes with little feet. So I can't actually turn this on. So how does this open? You know what? I would have preferred like a side module that slips open, but what the hell? I guess there's quality control for you. Raspberry Pi 4 Model B. Does it say what version is it? Nope. And doesn't tell you what the MAC address is, so that's something I'm going to find out later. What else does it come with? Wow. They've certainly gone downhill. I mean, when I got my previous one, it came with an anti-static bag. This is just ridiculous. Oh, it's an 8 gig. So for now I can't fire it up until the power module actually comes, but at least I got this. This is actually rather disappointing. I was expecting more out of it. You'd think the Raspberry Pi organization would know not to rip people off, but feels like a pretty cheap shot that it wasn't. I don't know. Where were these actually made? Made in UK. Yeah, 50-50 that I couldn't say anything about that, considering where I currently work. I mean, yeesh. Yeah, well, I guess I didn't get someone that was very attentive for mine then. So yeah, this is curious because this says AC/DC 5 volt, 3 amp, and all it is just a European socket. Alright, well, this was my unboxing so far. Yibbity yibbita. Okay, so a couple of days ago I got really lucky and I came across this, which is something I found in a bag of stuff that was thrown out, which is USB 2 to USB-C. And this is also made by Asus. I think that's how you pronounce the company's name. Don't know what device it originally came with, what it was for, but it plugs into here and turns out it works just fine. This is my 10-watt Apple charger. This is my backup charger. I think I actually got this from one of those garage sales. Now I've had this for a long time. Don't ask me, ooh, where do I buy it from? I got it on eBay, don't remember the listing, and I don't even know if they're still selling these. So with that said, today I want to find out how much this draws. Sorry, before I should have... this time of year is terrible for people with hay fever, especially with the back burning going on, and I'm really struggling to get this. Okay, so if I can keep my brain in function. Raspberry Pi Model 4 has 2 USB 3 ports and 2 USB 2 ports. Now, if I recall correctly, USB 3 is capable of outputting up to 1.5 amps. USB 2 is only capable of doing 500 milliamps. That's a lot of power for those 2 ports. When you go on their website, they recommend a 3 amp power supply, which would make sense to power USB 3. However, how much do you need to actually power the Pi itself? This states that it's supposed to output 5 volts at 1 amp, not 3 amps. Also, the Raspberry Pi website, it's more designed something you'd see with Apple versus, well, something like I'd like to see, which is basically the stats. Don't sell me the device, tell me what the device. But from what I've seen online forums, they say, oh, don't use a Nintendo Switch power supply, it doesn't have enough amperage. I fired this thing up with a Nintendo Switch and it worked. And a Nintendo Switch power supply, it worked fine. So my guess is the reason why they recommend the 3 amp power supply is because of these USB ports. Now, if you're going to be using a thumb drive like this one here, which is USB 3, this ain't going to draw an amp. Okay? So you shouldn't need a 3 amp power supply for it. Still, I want to find out how much this draws. And then you can say, well, okay, as long as you're not plugging in an external hard drive like one of these things, which is USB 3, and this thing will draw, does it say? Nope. With this, you probably need it. All right, so showing everything here apart from the extension cable, which don't ask me about, oh, where do I buy that? I've had that for over 10 years. I do recall getting it in a bag of junk as well, or a box of junk, and I go, ooh, extension cable, mine. This is to my remote, so I can actually turn the Pi off. It's that, or I use a keyboard. Anyway, I'm going to plug these 2 in. And let's find out how much energy the Raspberry Pi draws while posting into an operating system. Right now I'm trying to use, it's the media center thing. Now, out of my own fears, I never energize these cables, USB-C cables, until it's been plugged in, because I'm afraid of blowing a device. Now you can say, oh, but that's not going to happen. I'd rather not take the risk, thank you very much. So, let's just turn this on, because I forget what the display states. Alright, milliamps, amps, volts, and time. So now I'm going to power on the Raspberry Pi. Oh, sweet, you can see that just well. Alright, the Pi's initializing. Currently screen is blank. Alright, now the operating system's loading, and we're currently only using, I think it was 800 milliamps the highest it went. Now the code eye is loaded, so yay for that. That low voltage is a bit of a concern for me. So it's basically doing nothing. It's using about just under half an amp. Okay, so that's the Raspberry Pi Model 4B. Let's take a look at the Raspberry Pi 2B. Oh, version 1.1. Okay. So we'll test this one out next. But to make sure that I don't, well, kill this thing. Oh, there it goes. And power system off. Alright, it's off. So I can disconnect that. Disconnect that. Disconnect that. And then I realized something horribly stupid, and that I might not be able to see. Hey fever. Alright, now let's try out the Raspberry Pi 2, and let's see how that works. So plug this in. Now I need HDMI. So here is my standard HDMI. Just have to change the input on my TV. Which will this work? Nope. See, it's one thing when you get a hold of a television. Yeah, no, I found this thing on the side of the road, cleaned it up. The television, not the Pi. And I had to order a cheap $20 remote. Doesn't work 100%. After a couple of years, so. Alright, let's try to fire this one up. Loaded, okay, so software's loading. Oh, sorry, the operating system's loading. And blank screen. Now, it would be nice to compare some of the other Raspberry Pi models, but I don't really have them, so. Oh, there it goes. Now, because this doesn't have Wi-Fi, this doesn't have Bluetooth built in, this thing's going to draw a lot less energy. This Pi, honestly, I'd feel confident running it off my television, as long as I don't plug anything that draws too much current. This is probably really drawing the line between okay to plug into a TV with about an amp of current versus with an amp output versus a well, but I won't be able to run a hard drive off this, which I don't really intend to. It's either going to be thumb drive or everything's over the network. Okay, so that answers my question. I don't need the Raspberry Pi power supply, although I'm still waiting for them to come in. It's been about a week. No, it's been about 4 days. Sorry, not a week. They still may show up soon. Anyway, this part's over. I'm going to make sure that I turn this off properly. Oh, and that's another issue I found. I set this thing up with Kodai, and I think it was OpenELEC, and there's no audio. So I've got to fix that at some point. Not yet. Anyway. Interesting. While it's off, it's drawing just a small trickle. Anyway, unplug. And the voltage drop from this is a bit of a concern. Anyway, so far I haven't had any problems. Let's just leave it at that. I'll try to get back to more of this once I have the actual Raspberry Pi. But just a quick thing. The original box for my Raspberry Pi 2, anti-static bag it came in, and it came with this, well, it doesn't really have that much pages for the instructions, but so minimum size 4 gig, HDMI for the TV, RCA, USB. Here we go. Warning: the product shall only be connected to an external power supply rated 5 volts at a minimum current of 600 milliamp to 1800 milliamp. So what does this one say? Any external power supply with Raspberry Pi shell compatible with relative regulation standards, applicable blah blah blah. Power supply should provide 5 volts and a minimum rated current of 3 amps. Ugh. Yeah. And Element 14 are selling something that's rated for 1 amp. Okay! Anyway, with this part, I really got to plan things out properly. Ooh, and anyway, I'm going to stop this now. I am going to come back to this once I have the power supply, or power supplies, because I did order 2 of them. Turns out the original one's is cheaper, but I'll have to find out what that one is when I get it. Until the next clip, see ya. Okay, so finally I get to put an end to this whole thing. Okay. So I got this, which is here, which is like tiny ass. Something completely different, but important. I should be able to use this with my Raspberry Pi because it is 18 watts with any luck. Anyway, new toy, apart from like everything else. The video I had done regarding this, turns out they couldn't just send another one, they had to refund me. And I'm thinking, let's see, do I want to buy this or no? So I didn't do that. I just got the refund and walked away. This isn't even bloody Australian. Now, I was wholeheartedly and horribly wrong regarding this. This is 5.1 volts at 3 amps. So I was reading it wrong. That really was a bugger up. Now, my intention for my Raspberry Pi is simple. Oop. What I would like to do it's just record. It's just watch videos. That's it. Stream them from my NAS box onto my Raspberry Pi and onto my television. I'd like to be able to watch 4K. You can't do it with the Raspberry Pi 2, but you can with the Raspberry Pi 3. Blah, apparently. So, yay for that part. I just been outside and it's, yeah, hay fever season, not fun. So, with what I'd said before, if you wanted a minimal installation and you weren't running anything serious, so for instance, this is my remote. This draws very little. This is basically for my wireless mouse and keyboard. Not a problem. Flash drives, not a problem. External hard drives, then you're going to want some power. For myself, if I was to just go out and buy a random power supply, I would suggest at least 1.5 amps at a bare minimum. However, you won't be able to plug in external hard drives and even then if you're doing something like that, you'd be much safer getting a USB hub. A USB 3 powered hub, powered externally. And not something cheap from China, which could end up sending the whatever comes through the mains back into the Pi and killing that, because then you're going to lose, well, let's see, Ethernet, USB. Not fun. And depending on what else is connected through USB, it could kill the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth. So yeah, that could be very entertaining. Big pain in the ass, but very entertaining. Ugh. All right. So what I did do, however, is buy this, which I'm going to unbox now, because I've been wanting to do this for a while. I had this for a couple of days, but lighting has been terrible. And the funny thing is, when I finally did get this, the package it came in, which was a box, was open. And no, I didn't get this from Element 14, so... .1 volts at 3 amps. Now, I am curious about what the 5.1 volts is, that 0.1 volts. I wonder if it has to do with anything like the voltage drop when you put a load in anyway. Just me being me. So, I am going to be using this with my Pi. I mean, I could use this, which has got like a USB, your standard USB and USB-C, but that's for charging something else. Yeah. I don't want to break it. All right. How long does this say it is? 1.5 meters. This should be overkill. Hopefully. Finally. You know, it's a real shame this is sealed. No, it's not. This isn't that expensive. You know what I might have to do? Get another one of these and open it up. Because it is it's driving my curiosity up the bloody wall. Yeah, I think I will get one of these and pull it apart. New video. Ooh. Okay. So now I have my whole Raspberry Pi collection. I did have an issue. See, the television in front of me, which is an old Dick Smith Electronics one. If you're not in Australia, you probably won't know what Dick Smith is. It's basically it's an electronics store where you buy, well, initially you could buy little components, and then they just started selling the your standard crap, and then they basically went belly up and are now gone, which is real sad. There's still a website, but it's owned by Koga, so well, at the moment. Okay. Now, this is an if you have the same sort of issue I had, which is you plug it in, this HDMI port is basically 0 or 1. This is 1 or 2. So this is your second one, your first one. I learned good idea when you power it up for the first time, plug it into this one, this one, this one, this one, not this one, this one. This one's your second one. This one's for your other screen. This is your main one. Main, 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 main. Oh, that was pissing me off finding it online. Still, the issue I was having is that the television I was attempting to test it on would divert back to DVI setting and not HDMI when it loaded the operating system, so I wouldn't get the audio through HDMI, which was driving me psychotic. Plugged it into the TV I intend to use for watching, and it's like, oh, hello audio. Yeah, because every time I tried to go through the to get it to force HDMI, it would just reject and go back to DVI. If it does get anything like that, 3.5mm audio jack, and generally televisions have an input, so I think like RCA, well, the TVs I have RCA input, so I could just adapt that easily, but no, I wanted to run it. The TV that I want to use for watching this with, it does work. So really, if you're in a test scenario and the two TVs you're going to be, test TV isn't the same as the TV you're utilizing, just test it in them. God, this drove me nuts. Anyway, so last thing to unbox. As for this one, I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. Although I might take that 8 gig SD card out and use that for something, because it's very interesting. Very interesting to me. Anyway, with that said and done, yibbity yibbita.